It's Friday.
And you know what that means.
Welcome back to the Weekly Huddle YouTube channel. I'm your host, Owen, and today we are back at it again where I submit a take to the Draft Dudes podcast, typically draft related, and then I react to it, kind of a vehicle for me to discuss some points I want to discuss, and yeah, it's just a good way to get another person's perspective on a topic that I want to talk about or a take I have, and then have someone rebuttal me so that way I can rebuttal that and just have a good back and forth conversation without having to go through the hassle of doing some collaboration stuff like that. So other than that, yeah, if you've seen that past episodes, you know what we're about to get into. If not, go check those ones out. But otherwise, let's get right into the take.
Take from the Weekly Huddle podcast. Take. With a good showing at the Combine, Tyree Wilson will be able to make the late Travon Walker push to jump Will Anderson as the number one overall pick.
I think we have good process, bad results here. I just think one overall or top defensive end is probably a little rich for my blood, personally.
With the path there, like Will Anderson would have to come in like 240 pounds, sub 32-inch arms, and I don't know, like we hear so many good things.
Frankly, not going to happen.
Yeah, it's just I don't see the path. Will Anderson is a better player. Like, it's not close.
All right, so you've heard the take now, and this one has been bubbling in me for about 24 hours or so, maybe a little. Actually, no, it's actually been longer because those were different profiles. I wrote the Tyree Wilson prospect profile for Defiant Takes Football. I posted it on Wednesday. Oh my God, this whole week's been a mess. But I posted it on Wednesday, and if you haven't seen that already, or the one I posted about Peter Skronsky, or the one that's coming out today about Lucas Van Ness, I'll leave a link in the description for that. But I was writing up for Tyree Wilson. I have these guys all graded already, and I had the idea that I was not a Travon Walker guy in the slightest last year. But then all of a sudden after the Combine, he had this amazing Combine. There was this late push to get him to the number one overall pick, which he ended up going to. Despite the fact that Kayvon Thibodeau came to the year as like the number one defensive end projected prospect, had a decent year, got a little banged up, ended up falling to 5 after some bad, interviews at the Combine. Aiden Hutchinson had one of the best years of any prospect at all last year, and he was only at, 2 to the Lions. And Travon Walker jumped both of them because of physical traits. Now, just for perspective, before I get into why I suggested this, I have Will Anderson as my number one overall prospect. He clears Jalen Carter by half a grade. And then the jump from Jalen Carter at 2, which is half a point lower than Will Anderson, to number 3 on my board is 5 total points. Like, there's a clear gap between the cream of the crop top 2 players and then everybody else who I have rated in the same area. And Tyree Wilson is 5th on my board right now, with clear of Will Anderson by 6.5 points, clear of Jalen Carter by 6. So I'm not saying Will Anderson's or Tyree Wilson's a better prospect than Will Anderson is. Far from it. I think Will Anderson's a lot more polished, a lot more pro-ready. He was basically an NFL Pro Bowler playing against college players this year. It's not really even fair. However, and like I said, I wasn't high on Travon Walker. I had him at like a second-round grade because I couldn't see Travon Walker making that immediate jump to the NFL where he had all these physical tools, sure, and he showed out at the Combine, which if you watch his tape, you probably would have guessed that. But he was never able to make like pass rush wins on his own. It relied upon being on that generationally great Georgia defensive front, as well as just having pressures manufactured for him with stunts and twists and stuff. So I never was on the Travon Walker hype. The draft dudes were a little bit, not at number 1, but they had him up there. And they were on board with taking him at number 1 overall if you wanted that. I think that Tyree Wilson, who is 6'6", 275, he goes out there and just absolutely blankets the whole thing. Like, he's the one who everyone comes out talking about. He could be DN number 1 after the Combine, because Will Anderson, Alabama had it listed at 243 this year, so him coming in under 240 isn't that big of a stretch. I don't think his arms are going to be this short as they say, or say they would need to be. I'm just saying that in the past, I've had a player that I did not have graded nearly as highly as the guy who they got drafted over, but because they showed out so athletically and had this gift of having great athleticism mixed with size and there's just so much potential, I think Tyree Wilson might be that guy that teams will look at his upside, and if he shows out at the Combine, shows off all this athleticism, and Will Anderson doesn't have a phenomenal combine, the people are going to start asking the question like, okay, if the Bears stay at 1, is Tyree Wilson going to be number 1 overall pick? If the Bears trade down, is Tyree Wilson going to be the first D end off the board at like 3 to the Cardinals? There's a bunch more questions that get asked if he comes out there and like absolutely dominates the combine at 6'6", 275, and if Will Anderson at 6'4", 240 comes out there and just does like, expected numbers. If Tyree Wilson blows his numbers out of the water or even runs similar numbers to him at a much bigger size, then there's going to be serious questions about whether or not teams are going to value that athletic upside to take it number 1 overall. Like I said, where they overlooked Aiden Hutchinson and they overlooked the Jags specifically overlooked Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau. Both guys I think were better than Travon Walker, and that's just those two that he was drafted over. I had some other guys rated higher than Travon Walker he was drafted in front of them. But like you're telling me, I didn't think that was very outlandish that with the skill set that Tyree Wilson has, and he is a good athlete, so I am projecting him to have a big combine. And if he goes in there, if Will Anderson doesn't absolutely knock out the interview process or knock out his workout and Tyree Wilson checks off both, no matter what you see on tape, as proven last year, which is why I invoked the Travon Walker-esque movement up the board after the combine, is what... So regardless of what they look on tape like Travon Walker was, Tyree Wilson can still jump Will Anderson, even though on tape I think he's a much better player than Tyree Wilson at this very moment. Day 1 walking the NFL, Will Anderson is probably a Pro Bowler. Tyree Wilson, raw when it comes to developing pass rush plans, having counters, and unlocking his flexibility to attack upfield in the arc. Again, you can read what I had my thoughts on him for free over at Defiant Takes Football. Link in the description. Or if you want if you want to look at what I have to say about Will Anderson stuff too, at least right now, you can go to the Patreon for $1. But like the point of the take was I'm being consistent with myself that last year I had Travon Walker graded way lower than the guys he ended up getting drafted in front of. But since he showed out at the combine, everyone was telling me that he's number 1 overall pick. I even have a rant video on my channel from back then where I was flabbergasted, befuddled that they were going to take Walker 1. And even though I think I like Tyree Wilson way better than I like Travon Walker by like a substantial amount, I have him as a top 10 grade. So I can like arguably blue chip player. I don't think I would give him that title because if you're going to compare him to the other two actual blue chip guys, I don't think he's up there. But like he's much better. I like him much more than I like Travon Walker or that I like Travon Walker last year. And if he has a Travon Walker-esque rise, why would he not be D number 1? This is the same scenario as last year where an athletic guy passes the guy that I have graded higher, and that's just I'm keeping my process consistent. So that was the error of that take. I wanted to throw this take out there to get other people's opinions, so I've already gotten the draft dude's opinion. I've now explained myself and explained the reasoning, so maybe if they come back and listen to this, they can readjust how they see it or make comment on it, or any of you guys can make comments in the section or in the comment section down below, or hit me up on Twitter, tell me how stupid I am. But I think that is a realistic world we can look at, despite Will Anderson being the clearly better edge rusher prospect today. But other than that, check out Defiant Takes Football for my free prospect profiles I'm uploading there. Every view matters. And as well, I'm going to be still posting to the Patreon, $1, patreon.com/KeelPro88. And just check out the backlog of my draft stuff. I'm trying to put out a draft video every weekday from now into the draft. We'll see how all that goes. Maybe I'll bleed into this weekend, depending on how much recording time I have. But just keep an eye out, like, subscribe, and then be sure to comment on this to tell me your opinion. So thanks for all the growth, and I'll see you guys later.